Sorry that we had to start late. Thank you, Yinka, for holding up for me. I don't know, for the life of me, my laptop is being slow today. All right, good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ibilolia Kahume. I'm a business intelligence specialist. Yeah, I work for a health tech company, so basically, and I'm also a Power BI trainer and a mentor with Power BI track for the Power BI track in the textiles. All right. So today, basically, I am going to build up on what our mentor for last week started. So I'm going to talk about merging and appending tables in your data set before we talk about introduction to data analysis expression functions. So I'm going to share my screen now, and for the purpose of the lady who had issues with getting data, so I think I'm going to start from there so you can, have a recap and also understand it better, and also for others who may have questions too. So please just let me know once you can see my screen, because I don't know. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. Yeah. All right, do let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, awesome. Okay, so last week you guys had a lot to do with the Power Query editor for data cleaning, transformations, and the rest of that, all that stuff that helps you ensure data quality before you carry out your analysis. So your mentor stopped at append and merge query, so she couldn't move into that, I think, before the time elapsed. So I'll start off with that, and then we move into introduction to DAX. So we're going to just be doing basics of DAX. I'll just introduce you to it. And as you build up in your skill set with Power BI for data analysis, you are going to understand fully how to use DAX measures to model your data set for analysis. So we'll start off with getting our data before we push it to the Power Query editor. So I wanted to skip this part, but because of the questions that were asked, so I decided that it's a good place to start. So when we click on Get Data, please, if you have any questions at any point, it would be cool to maybe write them in the chat box, and then I can answer them later on. Okay. So yeah, so since our data set is more or less like an Excel workbook, right? Because we have both the Excel and the CSV type and other types of connectors to get our data from. So for this one, we have our Excel workbook. So when you click on the connector being the source you want to get the data from, right? So you see the connect here where my cursor is. So you have to click on connect. Now this connect, establishes a connection between your Power BI, right, and the data source. So I have this in my downloads. So I'm going to click on, oh, sorry, I think that's a CSV file. Okay, so I'll cancel this and go back again. So we're working with a CSV file, basically. So you have to click the right connector. Okay, so I'll click on the text or CSV file and then click on connect. I have in my downloads, textiles. Yeah, great. So I'm going to click on, one of these leads and then click open. So once you click on open, it establishes that connection and tries to load it to your Power BI desktop. Then it opens up a navigator page where you can now decide to preview your data to be sure that you're actually carrying the right data that you need. Okay, so this is the navigator here. And then we have our table here in the preview mode. Okay, so now we would want to automatically transform the data because we want to talk about appending queries and also merging our queries, the two different types of combining files. So we would click on transform data, and this takes us immediately to the Power Query editor. Remember from your last class, the Power Query editor is where you carry out all your transformations, true or false?
True. That's where we clean our data.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so now we have our Power Query editor open here, and because we want to talk about combining files, okay, so merging queries and appending queries are two ways of combining files. All right, now one of them talks about combining the files based on columns, while the other talks about combining the files based on rows. Now, before we go into either one, right, I would bring up a new table because, I mean, when you want to combine a file, definitely it has to be two or more tables you want to bring together for as one, for example. So I'll bring up another table into this. You can get your data from your Power Query editor too. So I'll click on new source here, and then click on text or CSV because we have it, our document is in our text or CSV, in a text or CSV format. And so we'll
Excuse
have
me.
to wait for it. Yes, please.
I think you're quite fast because we are trying to use our eyes to see, for me, to see where the cursor is going, to know where I'll click. So could you take it slow a bit? When you displayed the first page, was it transform data you clicked? How did you get to the navigator? Because what I saw was Power Query editor on mine when I clicked on the transform.
Okay, so when you connect to the data source, right, you click on connect to get in your data. Now you see at the bottom of the screen, load, transform data, and cancel. So we need to move to the Power Query editor because that's where we carry out transformations. So you would click on.
Maybe you can redo that step.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So I'll just close this. That's now. Okay, so I'm going to start off again, right, to connect our desktop to our Power BI desktop to our data source. And our data is in a CSV format. So I'll click on Get Data. Please tell me if you can see my cursor properly, because so when you click on Get Data, all right, since we are working with a CSV format, I'll click on text or CSV because that's how my document is saved in. This file extension name it's saved in is a CSV.csv file extension. Now, when I click on the text or CSV and it's highlighted, I'll click on connect at the bottom of the screen here. You see connect and then you see cancel. To establish a connection to my home, database or the data source where my document is saved, I'll click on connect. And then it opens up the exact place where you stored your data. So it could be in your documents, it could be in your downloads, it could be in a special, file name that you saved it as. But for me, it's in my downloads. So I would click on either one, right? So I want to bring in leads. I want to connect to leads, the file leads. So I'll click on leads and then click open. And wait for it to establish a connection. Now, once a connection is established, a new pop-up page comes up and it's called the navigator page. Okay, so the navigator page is where you preview your data to more or less like exactly see how your data is stored and to be sure that you are connecting to the right table for your analysis. Now, at the bottom of the navigator page here, you see load, you would see transform data, and you'll see cancel data. Now, because we want to combine files, we want to go into looking at how files can be combined. We can't do that on the Power BI desktop itself. Where we do that is in the Power Query editor. So we're going to be clicking on transform data. So once you click on transform data, it takes you straight to the Power Query editor. Okay. Now, this is our Power Query editor, and this is our data, the table that we just brought in. Is this clear? Do you understand the steps for which we use to get to this point?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Very well, thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. Now, we want to talk about combining files in a situation whereby you have multiple tables, right? But most of the time, the tables more or less like contain related data. So it's not like maybe let's assume data was being entered or generated, and we know that Excel has limitations of about 1 million rows. So imagine like the Excel sheet itself has been exceeded based on the data entry. A second sheet was created, or you have data from different departments, but they basically contain, almost the same information. So rather than putting them together as multiple tables in Power BI, right, you can either merge the queries if it is dependent on columns, or you can append the queries depending on rows. So let's say I have this table A, right? And I want to bring in a second table. Now, rather than going to my Power BI desktop to get data and the rest of them, we can get our data from the Power Query editor also. If you click on, you can see new query here. Can you all see the new query here?
Yes. New query or new source?
Yes.
New query. Okay, new query.
Yes, new query is the ribbon name. So I just want you I want to be sure that you can see exactly where our new source is. Okay, so the ribbon name is called the new query, right? And now you click on new source and you have to connect to the exact place where your data is. Remember, we are working with CSV documents, so we would connect to the text or the CSV document. Now, it automatically takes us again back to where our data is stored or saved on our system. If it's in a file system, if it's in a database, it takes you to the database where the data is stored and the rest of them. So I would like to bring in data for Manchester. Okay, so I'll click on open. Sorry, please, can you mute your mic if you're not talking?
You take a dose. Did you get the other? You will know the bed.
Sorry, can you mute your mic, please? Okay, so this is back again to our navigator page, but this time it's not telling us to go to transform data or load data, right? Because we're already in our Power Query editor and we're bringing it into the Power Query editor itself. So we'll click on OK, so that it loads our table. Now we have two tables, right, in our data sets. Oh, sorry, we have two tables now in our Power Query editor. Now, we would have to inspect the tables to look at the distinct features of the tables that would determine the kind of combination we want to do. Because when you want to combine files, either you are merging by columns or appending by rows. Please take note of the difference. It's either you're merging by columns or appending by rows. There are some important information that you need to know. Now, for you to merge columns, right, you need to have, the same number of rows. Remember, we merge columns, but you must have the same number of rows. Or else, if you have, like, let's say one table has 50 rows, the second table has 100 rows. You know what's going to happen to the columns of the first table? Can anybody take a guess?
Will you get lost?
To be empty.
Not really get lost. That not getting lost is not really the word. It's going to merge, right? It will merge based on the columns, but something is going to happen to the first table that has 50 rows. Remember, the second table has 100 rows. The first table has 50 rows. So the data for the remaining 50 tables of the first column of the first table, the data for the remaining 50 rows of the first table, what do you think will happen to it? I mean, it's interactive. Let's think.
I think it will disappear.
It will be empty.
It will be empty. So we're going to have null values there. So you have to ensure that when you are merging queries, you are merging based off on information that you need to, that means you're trying to combine information. So let's say you're getting employee data from, let's assume we're working with HR analytics, for example. Let's say you're getting employee data from the HR department. And let's say that's, you want to see overall, I mean, efficiency of the employee. You want to analyze their efficacies and their efficiency, or whatever the English word is, right? Now, you have to be sure that whatever you are merging together, remember we merge columns together, has complete information, or else you're going to be dealing with a lot of null values. Okay, then when you want to append queries, the same thing applies, but this time around you need to be sure, and you need to ensure that you have the same number of columns. To merge queries, you must have the same number of rows. To append queries, you must have the same number of columns. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, but it means saying before we can open up the Power BI, we should check both datas first to be sure it has
you can actually check them before you bring them into your desktop, or you can still check them when you're in your Power Query editor. So now look at this table, right? We have Manchester here, and if you look here, we have 5 columns, 727 rows, and we have Leeds here. All right, we have 4 columns and 525 rows. What do you think we can do here? So look at this. We have 4 columns here: name, date claimed, amount, category. And then for Manchester, we have claimed by, date claimed, date paid, amount, category.
So we'll make use of the similar data that both of them have.
Yes, I think
we knock off the one that we don't need.
Okay, so we'll make use of similar data that both of them have, right? Now we have different column headers also. So we have name here. We have claimed by here in Manchester. For Leeds, we have date claimed, right? And we don't have date paid. So what do you think will happen here?
Can we create the date paid column?
Do you have the information on the date paid? I mean, that's like a step, right? But do you have that information from somewhere?
No.
Okay, so does any other person have a contrary view? So let's assume this is like an ideal data, okay? And we want to merge the queries. Let's assume it's an ideal data. Or we want to append queries.
He joke. This one, somebody say,
Okay, so personally, here's what I would do, right? If I can't find information for date paid, I will drop the date paid column.
Yes, I said it. And I said we would knock it off and make use of the data that are similar to each other.
Oh, was that the second thing you said? I thought I heard.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. All right. So yes, I would actually knock out the date paid column, right? And yeah, and then we would now see. I mean, in this case, we're not going to be merging queries. We're going to be appending queries. Because the dates, by the time, okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, please, what's the difference between merging and appending columns?
Okay, so you don't append columns, you actually append rows. So this is it here, okay? So I didn't want to show us till I was done explaining it. So if you look at the icon here, you can see this rows, you append, you put rows on each other or under each other, whatever. You put rows here together. Okay, so append is bringing rows together. Merge means bringing columns together. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any other question?
Append is bringing rows together.
Yes. So it's
merge is bringing columns together.
Yes, merge is bringing columns together. Append is bringing rows together. So it's like piling. For append, you're piling on each other. For merge, you are expanding towards the right or whatever, towards the left or towards the right. So yeah, what's that in vertical and horizontal? That's always confusing me. The one that lies straight and the one that goes up. You know, X and Y axis, right? So append is piling up.
Yes.
Piling up. Merge is expanding.
So the one we just did, that's merging, right?
No, we've not merged. We've not combined. We've not done anything. We're just trying to, I'm trying to hear your thoughts around what you think we would be doing if we have a data like this. Remember, I said Manchester has 5 columns and Leeds has 4 columns. And I also said for you to be able to append a query, you need to have the same number of columns. For you to be able to merge a query, you need to have the same number of rows. Merging columns. Okay, please.
Yes, so in a situation whereby we are working with names, first name, middle name, last name, and some employees do not have middle names. So we decided to remove the middle name, the column for the middle name. And we realized that we have people with similar names. What happens? Will it not become duplicate information? And if you take out the duplicates, you might be taking out someone entirely from that process, and it might affect the decision. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, let me talk about the concept of duplication. This is like away from what I'm supposed to do, but duplication means you have the same information across the columns on the same row. So let's say you have number 1 and number 2 as Joseph Fisher. You need to ensure that all the way down to category is the same information for the 2 rows. That's duplicate. But you can't have Joseph Fisher. For example, let's say first name is in a different column, middle name is in a different column, last name is in a different column. And when you take out the middle name, okay, and let's say you now have the first name and the middle and the last name together. So assuming 2 people have the same first name and same surname, but when you go all the way down to the end of your table, do they have the same information? If they have the same information in the same rows, right, then that's a duplicate, or that can qualify as a duplicate. Other than that, it's not a duplicate. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let me give you a classical example. So look at 11 and 12. Let's assume Brandon Jackson are 2 different people. Now, if you look at the name column alone, you would think Brandon Jackson is a duplicate, right?
Yes.
For example. But now once you start going down the columns, right, you start seeing differences. So once there is an information that causes a difference between the two rows, right, in any column, it automatically disqualifies it as a duplicate. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, so now we need to be on the same page, right? The same number of columns. And I said, for me, I'm going to take out the date page. Okay, so I'm going to take out the date page, assuming I don't need it for any analysis. But if you need it for an analysis, I mean, you need to figure out when maybe there's another table that has information for the date page for leads, right? So for the purpose of this class, I'm going to take out the date page. So what do? I highlight on the date page column, and then I click on remove column. Okay, so I'll click on remove columns. Now we have the same number of columns. So that's 4 and that's 4. Okay, so now you can also choose to change this to name instead of claimed by. So we can just rename this as name. So we are on the same page. So we have name, date claimed, amount, and category for Manchester. For Leeds, we also have name, date claimed, amount, and category. Now, let us append queries. So that means I want us to bring Leeds and Manchester together as one table. Okay, so we're going to click on append queries, right? This is append queries here. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
All right, now you click on the drop down. See my cursor here. Can you see it move?
Yes.
No, I can't see where exactly, top or.
All right, so now here's the thing. You're on the home page on your Power Query Editor. Look for combine.
I can see it now.
Great. Now, so you click on the drop down.
Yeah, I can see.
All right, awesome. So we click on the drop down, okay? So there are two ways to append queries. You want to append the query on the same table, or you want to append the query as new?
Sorry, please, where can I find the append? It's not displayed. Maybe it's under another topic on my own.
It's on the right hand side.
On the right hand side, on top of combine. So combine is the ribbon name.
Okay, combine. Okay, yes, I've seen it as a drop down that combine. Thank you.
All right. So now you click on append queries, then you have this drop down. Click on the drop down. Now you have append queries and append queries as new. So now the idea is appending queries as new, right? I always say if you want to combine files, okay, please combine it as a new file. In case there's an error somewhere and you need to sort it out, you don't have to start going back to reloading your data, carrying out your transformations, cleaning and the rest of them, okay? So always append your queries as new, or always combine your files as new, or anything that you want to do that will alter the table that you've already loaded into your Power BI desktop or Power Query Editor. Please do it as new, right? And then I would show us when we have to load back this data. You don't need to load all 3 tables. So we'll get to that point. So let's finish up with appending queries as new. So you click on append queries as new, and a navigator comes up. So you see now, let's talk about the navigator. So it says concatenate rows from 2 tables into a single table. All right, so there are, 2 ways, 2 options. So since we have 2 tables, definitely we'll be picking 2 tables. But if you have 3 or more tables, definitely you have to pick this. This is your best bet. Once you have more than 2 tables, you pick the next option, which is 3 or more tables. So, but for now we have just 2 tables. So our first table is the Leeds table, and our second table will definitely be the Manchester table. Okay, so do you understand what I just did here and what I explained?
Yes.
All right, awesome.
Yes,
so now
yes.
All right, you click on OK. All right. So now we have a third table here that says append 1. So we're going to rename it as appended cities. I mean, you can just come up with any name. All right. So what I did was I clicked on properties to the right under query settings, and then I changed the name here. Okay. So now, if you look here, if you did this correctly, you'll see 4 columns, 999 plus rows. Is that what you can see? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So
Please recap again. I didn't get the question.
So I said, if you appended correctly, okay, you are going to see 4 columns, 999 plus rows.
Well, for me, 4 columns.
It's at the lowest end.
Oh, yes. Okay, it was not well displayed. Okay.
Sorry, please. Is it possible you help us upload the data set, please?
Yeah, it will be uploaded. Yinka. Hello, Yinka.
Yeah, I'll upload it on the files now.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now we have our appended cities here. Remember, we append rows. We bring rows together. So this plus this together, we have 999 plus rows. So what it means is that we have over 1,000 rows here. Okay, so but I mean, automatically Power BI can only show you the top 1,000 rows. The Power BI query editor can only show you the top 1,000 rows. So we have this now with append queries. Does it make sense?
Well, if we are using your own data set, we should have this 900 and something you are talking about, right? Because yeah. I just appended any file I saw on my on my system and all that. So this 900 and something, I don't get it.
Okay, no, that's fine. Once you have the data set, you should have 999 plus rows once you append.
Okay.
I've just uploaded files I've just uploaded the 3 files to the file section, but you may not be able to catch up if you start doing it now. But if you feel like you can catch up, then you can start doing it. But if you go to the file section of this channel, you see Leeds and Manchester, and the third one that we made.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, awesome. So now let's bring in an unrelated document. Okay, so an unrelated file to look at merge queries. Okay, so I'm going to bring in now this time around. I'm bringing in any kind of file. So I'll click on text CSV, new source again, and then I'll wait for it. But do we have any questions on append queries? Okay, so do we have
yes, I do.
All right, please ask.
All right, appending. I know that before you did that appending, you did remove one of the, is it the rows, the paid, the something paid. So I don't know why that was removed. And then I looked at my own. I don't have remove, but I know under manage, I have something like delete. It should function for if I want to remove a row or something, or it was a column you removed, a column, I guess. Something paid, you remove that before you appended. I don't know the reasoning behind that, please.
Okay, so yeah, I removed a column because remember we said for you to be able to append queries, you must have the same number of columns. Do you remember that?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So just hold on. I'm bringing in this data just for us to see what merge looks like anyway, but just hold on. So now, I think we took that out of Manchester City. Why did I say Manchester City? Sorry, Manchester. Okay, so we took that out of Manchester. So it's just simply, I mean, this is being recorded, so you can watch it again, right? So it's just simply highlighting on the column you want to take out, because Manchester had 5 columns, Leeds had 4 columns. For us to be able to append, we must have the same number of columns, and they must be the same. So the data in the columns must be the same. All right, and you must ensure that they are all arranged in the same way. If not, if you have amounts where date claimed is, right, you'd have errors in your data type and the rest of them. Okay, so they must be the same number of.
Rearrange them.
Yes, it's possible to rearrange them. We'll see that when we merge queries. I'll show you how to rearrange.
Okay.
How to rearrange them. All right. Okay, so you must have the same number of columns for you to be able to append queries, and your columns must have the same data. So when I mean the same data, I don't mean like what's in table 1 must be the same thing in table 2. No, I mean the same data types, the same header, all right, so that you don't start having errors in your data once you combine them together. Okay, once you append them together. So all you just need to do is highlight the column, all right, and click on remove columns, and it automatically takes that out. So what we took out was date page, because we didn't have it in our Leeds table. Okay, but in a situation whereby maybe there's a different file that has the date page for the Leeds table, right, all you need to do is just to bring it together and then rearrange the columns and then append it. So they must be 4-4 or 5-5 or whatever the number of columns are for you to be able to append easily. Now, let's look at merge query. So this is not a perfect data to using, I mean, showing merging queries or anything, but we're just going to use this to buttress a point, okay? So we have 548 rows here. 4 columns, we have 727 in Manchester, we have 525 in Leeds. Okay, so let's just use Leeds, right, for this. All right, so let's use Leeds and Liverpool to talk about merging queries. So now, remember, we merge queries by bringing columns together. They must have the same number of rows. If they don't have the same number of rows, we're definitely going to see errors and the rest of them. So you'd click on merge queries, okay? As usual, it must be new. Merge queries as new. And it brings up a navigator page. Now you can see that there's a difference between the merge navigator page and the append navigator page. Okay, so now the idea of merging queries is like joining tables. Do we have any knowledge of joining tables in data analysis?
I don't have.
Okay, so that's like a different class, a totally different class. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you.
Are you saying on Power BI or Excel?
So joins is, I mean, the same thing, but most times you find yourself using joins in Power BI, SQL. Okay, so just think about VLOOKUP, right? So VLOOKUP is like joins.
VLOOKUP.
Yeah, so VLOOKUP is the joins of Excel, more or less like. All right. Okay, so now, or not like VLOOKUP, let's not limit it to VLOOKUP. Lookups, using lookups is like join. So because, I mean, we have XLOOKUP, we have the VLOOKUP, we have the HLOOKUP, and the rest of them. Yeah. So also index match too. I mean, they are just like the joins of Excel. Okay. So now to merge your tables, right? We have tables. Definitely, you must pick the table. So we're picking Liverpool and Leeds. Okay. And now this is the join kind. So this is where I asked about joins. Okay. First of all, you can see that we don't even have this highlighted here for us to click, and that's because we need to ensure that they have the same number of what? The same number of what?
Rows.
To merge columns.
Of columns.
No, to merge columns, the same number of rows. To append rows, the same number of columns. Do you get it?
Please again.
To merge columns.
No, we don't get it.
To merge columns, the same number of rows. Okay. To append queries, the same number of columns. So to merge columns, the same number of rows. To append rows, the same number of columns.
Yes, you get now.
All right. So let's click name and let's click name. Okay. So you can see, well, it says the selection matches 0 of 548 rows from the first table. Okay. So we don't have, I mean, if they were the same number of rows, right, you'd see that it's 548 together. But either ways, I mean, it's going to let us match. But let's see how it would look like when we create that merge together. Now, yeah, so the concept of joints, right, is there are basically, I think I'm trying to remember in my head, outer, inner, full. So more or less like, let's say basically 3 kinds of joints, right? So you have the outer, the inner, and the full join. So the join kind here, right? It says left outer. So we're taking all from the first table, matching it from the second. You have the right outer, all from the second. I mean, you need to understand the concept of joints to know this, but for the purpose of this, stick to left outer. Okay, so for the purpose of this, we're going to stick to left outer. So I'll click on left outer and then click OK. So let's see if our table merges. Can you notice any difference? Can you guys notice any difference?
Not really.
Yeah, we're seeing. I can't.
I mean, I know you can see, but you don't want to say it, or you feel like you're going to say
Yes,
the wrong.
like
There's no wrong
it's
answer.
showing the number of tables.
Delete. There's a new.
Delete is where after 1.2 amount.
It's showing the number of tables.
Okay, so one person, please.
It's showing the number of tables now.
Okay,
per
so not
row,
like,
right?
Not like number of tables. So what it's saying is that we added a new column, but this column has tables. That means there are other columns inside of this table. Do you understand this? It means there are other columns. So now those other columns that we brought from leads, they are all contained inside here. So that's why you see table, like, I mean, all the way down to maybe 548 or whatever the value is. You just keep seeing table and the rest of them. So now for us to see the content of leads, we need to expand this column here where my cursor is going over and over and over, cycling, right? We need to expand this column to be able to bring out the content of these leads. So you click on this here. Okay, so this means, let me redo that. Please, everyone, let's look up from our laptops and focus on the screen now. For you to be able to expand this, okay, you need to click on this. So it looks like, okay, I was gonna say it looks like this exercising bar that guys lift, but I mean, it doesn't really look like that. So it looks like arrows pointing to the left and the right, okay? So you're gonna click on it, and then you can see that we have all of our columns here that we got from leads. Okay, so now there's something here that says use original name as prefix. What it means is that once we expand this column to get out all of these babies, so it's like a pregnant woman that has quintuplet, no? Is it quintuplet? Quadruplet. So we want her to deliver this quadruplet. Okay, so now this use original column name as prefix means that as we're telling her to deliver, we don't want the name to, I mean, look like this name to give us, we want to distinguish it that these columns that we were delivering is from a different person, okay? So if you use original column name, if you highlight this, that's check this box, this is what it's going to look like. So you have lead.name, okay? You have leads.date claimed, you have leads.amount, you have leads.category. Can anybody tell me why we have null values here?
Because the data are not related.
Yeah, try again.
But the data is not there. There's no data in that particular row.
Nope, try again. See, I've been emphasizing this question I'm asking, I've been emphasizing the answer since. Try again.
Because the rows are not equal, so.
Exactly, because we do not have the same number of rows. So that's why we have this. But I mean, we're just trying to show you the concept of merging, okay? So you can bring tables together, merge them together by their columns, but you need to ensure that they have the same number of rows for you to be able to merge them together. And when you merge them together, okay, this is what it would look like. This is what it will look like. I mean, the columns are going to be impregnated into the table, the header of their table or the name of the table. So you need to expand them to be able to see all of those columns. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Purpose, can you do that again?
Yes.
Sorry, the expanding of the
Exactly. Please,
table.
thank you.
Okay. So
The
you
expand.
understand up to this point where we have this here,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
okay, and you understand that this column and then you have table, table, table. It means that all of our columns are inside here, right?
Yes.
Now, for you to be able to get out
Yes.
all of those columns, you need to expand it. So all you do is click on this icon here, okay? And then you click on OK. Now, I said if you check this box, use original column name as prefix, it means that the table name would be the suffix, right? So it's gonna be leads.name, leads.date claimed, leads.amount. But if you uncheck this, I mean, you have the exact name of the column, so it doesn't need to show that you combined tables, okay? So since I've shown you what it looks like when this is checked, I'll show you what it looks like when it's not checked. So I will uncheck this and click OK. Okay. So you can see now that because we have name here, it will say name.1. Because we have amount here, it will say amount.1. Okay, so does it make any sense now? Do you understand this?
Yes,
Yes.
understandable.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, so this, my friend, is the concept of merging and appending queries. Okay, so now let me show you when you merge your queries, and you'll be some people will be bothered about, like, okay, so I have two tables or whatever number of tables I have, and then I've put all of them together as one. Do I need to push them again to Power BI desktop, all of them to Power BI desktop? The answer is no. Okay, you don't need to do that. So this is what you do. I mean, since appended cities is the only column here that makes sense, that's the only thing we're going to push. So I'm going to delete this merge. So what I'm going to do is right click on it as is highlighted and click on delete. Yeah, please delete it.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, I can't even undo that.
No, I know.
So just
what was the reason we removed the merge one?
Because it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so are you saying anytime we see where we that merge one, we take it off?
No, merge one is the new table we created by merging Liverpool and Leeds. Yes, and it's not a data that makes sense because I mean we have null values due to the fact that we didn't have the same number of rows to merge.
Rows, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
so that's why I deleted it. It doesn't make any sense having null values.
Okay, so it means we are not making use of it. You just showed us how to merge.
Exactly.
Rows. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now I want to push my table to Power BI desktop, and it's only appended cities I want to push. I don't want to push Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool. Okay, so I only want to push appended cities. I mean, you can also append Liverpool to this and all of that, but I mean, you know, Liverpool, you have to clean the names very well. Oh yeah, so let me show you how to, sorry, before I push, let me show you how to rearrange. So this is how Leads looks like. We have name, date, claims, amount, and category, right? The same thing with Manchester, name, date, claims, amount, and category. But Liverpool is totally different. So we have name, description, date, and amount. So what it means is that, you know, description is the same thing as category, so it's supposed to be at the end, right?
Yes.
So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, try it, and then drag it. So when I mean click, like hold your mouse down and drag it to the end. Okay. And drop it there.
Okay.
So I'm going to do it again. So I want to move description to the end. So I'll just double click on it, hold my cursor as I'm moving, drag to the end. Do you understand this?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's move our table to Power BI desktop. So on leads, right? On leads, we don't want to push leads together. So I'm going to right click. Oh, they've taken the light. So I'm going to right click on leads. And you see this enable load. Can you see enable load? Uncheck it.
Yes.
Do the same thing for Manchester. Right click, uncheck enable load. Do the same thing for Liverpool. Right click, uncheck enable load. So you can see that all that we've unchecked enable load, they've become italicized. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So they've become italicized.
Yes.
Unlike appended cities that we didn't uncheck. So the others have become italicized. Now, next step is to close and apply.
Please, I'd like to ask, anytime we do something like this, like you replicate what you just did, are you saying we should always enable what did you just do now?
Uncheck.
When you uncheck enable load, means you are disabling it. So the idea is this: if I bring in 10 tables to my Power Query editor and I merge all of them as one, I don't want to load 11 tables, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's why you have to uncheck enable load for every other table except the one you're pushing to the Power BI desktop. And you can see this here, that it is only one table that is loading. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Any question?
So how do you get to know? Sorry? So at what point do you append, and at what point do you merge?
Okay.
As in, what informs your merging and appending? Because like the merging we did now, you said that was for to serve as an example that it's not needed here, it's useless. So at what point are you working with the two, or you have to work with one per time? What information really drive you to append and to merge?
Okay, Yinka, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say that merge and append queries can be sometimes confusing. So I shared a resource, I shared a link on that can read further to better understand it. Lelia, do you want me to answer the question she asked, or you take it?
Okay, no, that's fine. Someone else can. Maybe you have some other way of explaining it. But I mean, so what I would say, right, is this is what informs it. I think I said it earlier, right? If you have, I used an example of having multiple data from the same company, for example, or you have a company, right? There's a company and you have it has different branches in different locations. Now you want to work on a data set, or you want to work on an analysis, and they're bringing the same data. Using this example now, we have data from Leeds, we had data from Liverpool, we had data from Manchester. Okay, now, first of all, I don't know if I should mention the concept of relationships. I hope that's not going to confuse them. So,
it's a relationship. it's
okay, because that's the only way I can explain why you should, merge or append a table.
Sorry. So let me just quickly chip something in.
Awesome.
And I'll give an example. Deborah, I think you work in a law firm or some. Oh, got volume now. Babe.
Yeah.
Sorry, apologies. So I'll give an example. You have a law firm, and let's assume that your law firm has 3 branches, one in Abuja, one in Port Harcourt, one in Lagos. And then you collect staff information from Abuja firm, staff information from Lagos firm, and staff information from Port Harcourt firm. What you would do if whoever the MD is wants to see all of that information, you don't want to, instead of having to copy and now, because there are only 3 branches, you might think, is it not easy to just copy and paste? And now I'm saying this is information about all your staff, like their name, their email address, their maybe their date of birth and one other thing. So all the information for Abuja staff, all the information for Port Harcourt staff, the same for information, all the information for Lagos staff. It might be easy to just copy and paste it and join it together in Excel because there are 3. But imagine that you have 100 branches. Now it will be tedious to start copying and pasting it one after the other. In that case, you will want to use append queries to stack them on top of each other. It is the same information, but it belongs to different branches. So you stack them on top of each other. Now let's assume that when you finish stacking them, in all your 100 branches, you have 1,000 staff. So you've collected all their information, their name, date of birth, blah, blah, blah. You stacked them on top of each other. You have all the information. Then maybe the next year, you're doing some event, and then you collect another information about the same set of staff. So now it is the same 100 or maybe 1,000 staff across your 100 branches. Before, you only had their name, their age, and their date of birth. But now you've collected more information about maybe the year they were hired, how long they spent with the company, and some other thing. So now it is new information, but it is about the same set of people. You want all of them to be in the same place. Again, you can copy and paste it. But if it's a lot of information, it may be difficult to copy and paste it. In that case, you then have another. So in that case, you now have 2 tables. You have one table that has their name, their age, their date of birth, and whatnot for 1,000 people. Then you have another table that has the year they were hired, how long they spent with the company, maybe how many family members they have, whatever information for the same 1,000 people. Now you can merge those 2 tables. You bring them side by side. So you're merging the columns, and they have the same number of rows because they are the same 1,000 people. This time you're now merging them side by side. The other time you were stacking them on top of each other because information for different people from different branches. But now this is further information about the same set of people. You then merge them, you bring them side by side, and you marry them together.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Olayin.
Thank you so much.
What you're saying now for the margin now, with this example that you just gave, so you have those information on a single file, kind of showing both
for that
information
detail
from the
You have half of the information on one file. You have the other half of the information.
So you're merging it together on one whole file. Thank you so much.
Yeah, one file that has all of the information.
Perfect. I understand it perfectly this way. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Yinka. Yeah. So yes. So thanks so much for that explanation. So I didn't want to talk about the concept of relationship, right? But I'm just going to chip it in. So most times we're able to bypass all of these merging and appending by using relationships. So that's like something in depth later on. Once you're used to all of the analytics, it's more or less like intermediate to advanced. You'll be able to understand other ways of bypassing this. So do we have any other questions on merge and append before we go into introduction to DAX?
No, with what I've seen, I'm fine. I think this is like the first class that is really saying how it actually is supposed to be. I'm glad I joined today.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so let's go to DAX basics. So very important.
Please, before you go on.
Okay.
No, sorry, before you go on the Power Query, when we on the Power Query, for those information that we have, I know they said something last week about correcting errors that you have. I don't think we did anything concerning, because I think it was said that we were going to work more on that, as in cleaning up our data and everything like that.
Okay, so Yinka, do you want to go answer that?
I don't get the question. That you were supposed to learn about cleaning data.
Yes, I think it was not done last week. Am I missing it up?
We covered the whole of cleaning data last week. The one was remaining was this merge and append queries. Then said but I think most of the other data cleaning has been covered last week. Again, you can go watch the video. And the way people are complaining, I don't know, maybe we might have to do another data cleaning class. But let's get done with today's class.
Okay, so for the purpose of today's class, I'm going to tell you that this is basics of basics. So we're just going to be doing an introduction to this, right? And if possible, we can take some examples. So we're going to be looking at DAX basics, and I mean, I had to use the old textiles color stuff for my PowerPoint. I love colors a lot. So yeah, so our content basically, I'm going to introduce you to DAX functions, what DAX functions are. We're going to try to compare and contrast DAX functions from Excel functions. And we're also going to look at types of DAX functions and examples. So some of them I'll give examples, some of them I'll just let it be, because those ones are more advanced, but I'm just going to introduce you to it. So DAX is actually an acronym, DX. Okay, so it stands for Data Analysis Expressions, and it's a formula language. Okay, so just like Excel functions, it's a collection of functions, operators, constants, okay, that are used in a formula or expression to calculate and return one or more values. So let's say you want to carry out some statistical calculations, you want to carry out some mathematical calculations and the rest of them. Just the way you have those Excel functions in Power BI, you have that for DAX. In Excel, you have the one for Power BI known as DAX. All right. So it's important to note that DAX is not a programming language. And why am I hitting on this? It's because we have seen situations where job descriptions will say an understanding of a programming language. You're going to see Python, SQL, then you see DAX. DAX is not a programming language. It is a formula language that is used for modeling data. Okay. Now, DAX is being carried out on calculated columns and calculated measures. So this is where you write that. So the idea is you're carrying out calculations, whether you are calculating the sum of something, whether you're writing a logical function, whether you're writing a time intelligence function and the rest of them. DAX is being done in either a calculated column or a calculated measure. Okay. Now what is DAX function? It's an inbuilt function, so it comes with Power BI. So, but you have to call it up. Okay, so you have to like call it up. The way you write the Excel functions, it starts with an equal sign, right? So let's say you want to calculate the total sum of something. You write the name equals to and the rest of them. So I would show us what it looks like. It's a typical use case after the introduction. So you use it basically for data modeling. So let's say you're working on sales data and you just have maybe total price, then you have quantity somewhere, but you don't have the total amount that was made from that price, okay, on that item. So you can use the DAX functions to carry out such calculations. Now, they can be simple calculations or they can be complex calculations. They are really, really complex calculations, okay, that involves you calling up multiple different kinds of DAX functions to create one particular answer or something, or one variable that you're trying to work on. Now, it's important to note that DAX and Excel functions are not the same thing. Although there are some Excel functions that works on DAX in Power BI, all right, but the DAX function itself is a modification of the Excel function. So while some Excel functions can work in Power BI, DAX cannot work in Excel. Okay, so we're going to look at the similarities. So DAX functions have the same name, same general behavior as Excel functions. You know, just like you have the sum in Excel, you can use the plain sum in Power BI. Okay, so that's why I said some can be simple and they can also be complex. So simple ones like carrying out the sum, trying to see the total of something and the rest of them, just like you do it in Excel, can be done in Power BI. Now, DAX also has its own lookup functions that are similar to, you know, the array and vector lookup we talked about. So the X lookups, the V lookups, the index match, and the rest of them. DAX has its own function, like really complex kind of function. So now let's talk about the differences. The major difference is DAX functions have been modified, right? And they can take different types of inputs or otherwise known as variables, okay? Most of the time, they may return a different data type. So what we're trying to say is that Power BI DAX is an upgrade of Excel functions. So some of the functions that you can see written in DAX cannot work in Excel because most of the time, or no, it's as a rule of thumb, Excel takes a cell reference or a range of cells as a reference when you want to call up its functions. But unlike Excel, Power BI takes a column. So Power BI can look at an entire column or an entire table as a reference. Do you understand this? So what I'm trying to say is that Excel can work on, let's say an Excel function can work on maybe a particular cell reference. Let's say you want to reference cell A2 or maybe A3 or A4. But Power BI does like an overlook, like looks at everything, an entire column, even if it has 30 million rows, okay, an entire column, or it can look at the entire table as a reference. That's one of the major differences between the DAX functions for Power BI and the Excel functions. Now, I've also talked about the fact that DAX functions cannot be used in an Excel formula without the required modifications. Okay, so DAX functions can be used in an Excel formula without you removing some of the intricacies of DAX, and Excel formulas cannot be used in Power BI without adding the intricacies that needs to spice it up to DAX. So that's what we mean by they cannot be used in either of them. Okay, as sorry, I duplicated this, sorry, without the required modifications. Now, let's talk about the different types of DAX functions. It's important to understand this concept so that you know when you see a function, or you know what you want to use when you are tasked with the task of carrying out data modeling using calculated columns and calculated measures. Now, DAX supports the following types of functions. So the ones they call the table valued functions. Examples are the filter functions, and it uses the DAX function name as filter, right? Or add columns and the rest of them. Then you have the DAX aggregation functions. So aggregation functions are usually used for mathematical expressions like the sum, average, count if, mean, max, right? You want to see the minimum number, you want to see the maximum number, you want to see the average, and you want to see the, all of that stuff. Those are called aggregation functions. Then you have the time intelligence functions. Let's assume you're working on a sales data that has an order date and a shipping date, and you want to see the difference between the days. Okay, so you cannot subtract two dates to get a value. So we have DAX functions for that, called the DAX time intelligence functions. Now you have the DAX date and time functions. Those ones are used specifically to create date tables, timetables, and the rest of them. You have the information functions. You have the logical functions. The logical functions are used to write conditional statements. Example of that is the if, okay? You have the and, you have the or, that are used to write conditional statements. And most of the time, you have a combination of all of these statements together in a DAX formula. Now, you have the DAX math and trig functions. You have other DAX functions. You have DAX parent and child functions. This one has to do with data modeling, gongo. So let's not talk about the relationship and the rest of them. Then you have the DAX statistical functions, median, mean, mean x, median x, and the rest of them. So it's a lot of functions, like a whole lot of functions that are inbuilt in the Power BI DAX. So let's look at the DAX syntax. Now, when you want to write a DAX function, a DAX function has certain information that you look out for. Now, the DAX function name is given in uppercase letters. So I was saying we're going to, okay, sorry. Okay, so the function name is given in uppercase letters. We're going to see an example of this, and it is followed by an opening parenthesis. Can you see my screen and my cursor?
Yes.
Let me see if I can highlight this. Okay, so it's followed by an opening parenthesis. Now, after the parenthesis, that thing you want to calculate, or whatever parameter you want to look at, that you want to evaluate, follows after the parenthesis. Okay, and after that, you have the parameters are separated by commas. So, just like the Excel function, you have, let's say you want to sum maybe two tables, or you want to sum two cells, for example. So when you write the equals to sum, let's say A2 comma A3 comma A4, and the rest of them, or you want to take it as a range, whatever the case is, but parameters are separated by commas. Okay, and then ellipses, these are ellipses. They are used to show optional number of repetitions. So maybe parameters can repeat themselves multiple times. So you have the ellipses. And now every function starts and ends with a parenthesis. If not, it's not going to read. Okay, so it's not going to perform the said task that was assigned to that function. So it starts with the uppercase letters. That's the function name. So what you want to do you want to sum? Do you want to carry out an average calculation? Do you want to filter? Do you want to check the date difference between two or more dates and the rest of them? Okay, then you have the opening parentheses, but after your parameters and everything that you have imputed, you must end with a closing parenthesis before the function can actually work. Does that make any sense? Everywhere is quiet.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to Power BI, and then we're going to work on a simple function before we call it a day. So I'm going to take out this table. I'm going to take out this table. So I'll click on, so here's what I did anyway. So right click on the table and delete from model. This girl is dead.
This is for when we don't want to continue with a particular sheet again, Abby.
Not necessarily. So you can save your documents, but for me, I don't need to save and start opening up a new file.
That's what I'm asking. Okay,
yeah.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll click on get data. This time around, I'm going to be working with an Excel workbook. Tell me what put the sun in the sky. All right, so Excel workbook, connect, and okay, so this is the name of the table, all you need store, and then I'll click on open. So we are going to see a different kind of navigation pane because this table has at least 4 worksheets in it. Okay, so this is our navigator pane here. All right, we have 4 different tables, or 4 different, 4 different tables in this particular data set that we uploaded. So we have the customer table. Okay, so you click on it so you can preview. Okay, so this is the customer table, the sales rep table, the sales table, and the stores table.
What you're saying is not showing on your screen.
Is it same thing for everybody?
Showing, no, I can see it.
Oh, I think that's
showing. It's showing.
Okay.
It's just coming up now.
All right. Okay, so I was just talking about the 4 different kinds of tables in this data set that I uploaded. So mind you, if you check all of these boxes, it means you want to upload all these tables. Okay, so I don't want to upload all of these tables. I just need the sales table for the purpose of this class. So this is the sales table. Okay, so this is it. For the purpose of this class, this is what I want to work with. So I'll click on load. I don't want to transform the data because I just want us to talk about writing a simple DAX function. If not, you need to go through the process of transforming, cleaning the data, especially in a situation whereby you're not sure of the data quality. So you do all the necessary steps before you load the data. Okay, so our data is here now. Remember from your first class, the different parts of Power BI. So we're going to inspect our data this time around from our data view so that we can acquaint ourselves with the different columns in our data. So we have order ID, product name. So this is a sales table, and it contains everything sales, the product, the quantity that was sold, the product price. So we have the quantity sold, we have the product price, we have the profit margin, okay? And then we also have shipping dates as well as order dates. Now, it's important to note something, guys. The kind of DAX you're going to be writing is dependent on the kind of analysis you're working on. So it's not like it's every table or every data set you get that you're going to start carrying out DAX calculations. Does it make sense?
Yes.
There are some analysis. Okay. There are some analysis you're going to be working on. You will never write one single DAX function. there are some analysis that you work on. You would definitely use DAX to bring out all the key things, the key metrics that you need to visualize. Okay. In that instance, or in that circumstance where you have to write a lot of DAX functions, please have this at the back of your mind. The DAX function is always online, so you don't need to cram DAX. You need to just understand the concept. Now, whatever it is I want to write, or whatever it is I want to calculate, okay, I need to know that I'm calling up a function that has to be in parentheses, then I'll put in my parameters, and then close the parentheses. That's the basics in syntax that you need to know. Once you understand that, anything you want to carry out, you can Google the DAX function for it and then replicate it with your data. Does it make sense? I'm very sure Yinka does not know up to 5 DAX functions in her head. Yes. She just knows the names and knows when to apply them. It's the same thing for me. But we don't have the full formula in our head for anything because there's so much, right, that you need to know and carry. How many functions you want to carry in your head or how many formulas? Okay. So now, I remember I said DAX functions are used in calculated columns or calculated measures. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Sorry, Ibiliola. Sorry, I can't pronounce. I just wanted to go over what you said. That you said that we don't need to cram functions, but just know the basics. Can you just go over what you said the basics are again?
Okay. So the basic syntax of any DAX function you want to write has the function name, which is in capital letters, followed by an opening parenthesis, then the parameters. Okay, so you can have one parameter, you can have more than one parameter. So if you have one parameter, I mean, it's just the function name, opening parenthesis, the parameter name, then the closing parenthesis. But if you have more than one parameter, every parameter is what's that word now? Differentiated by a comma. So every parameter is differentiated by a comma. Once you have more than one parameter, is differentiated by a comma, and then you have your closing parenthesis. So the basic syntax is function name, opening parenthesis, parameter, closing parenthesis. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Now, for you to carry out any DAX function, you need to understand the concept of new columns, creating columns, calculated columns rather, and creating calculated measures. Okay. So now, the difference between the calculated columns, you can see them here, new column and then the new measure. The difference between the new column and the new measure is that one of them adds a new column to our already existing column in the table, while the other one doesn't add a new column. So which is which?
The new column will add a new column to the table.
Okay.
The new measure will not.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, the concept of the new column is that there are some DAX functions you need to write. You cannot skip the new column. You cannot skip adding a new column, okay? So functions like logical functions and all the rest of them, okay? You need to add a new column so that they can be seen because they are logical functions. So they don't need to be summarized or all of that stuff. While a new measure can be used for anything other than logical functions. Now, if I want to create, we have our quantity sold here. Okay, we have our product price and our profit margin. But now we don't have the total amount made from each item here. And I would like us to calculate the total amount made from each item. What do you think would be the formula that we're going to be writing? It's going to be a very simple formula actually. We have quantity sold, we have product price, and we have profit margin.
Are we not going to add the product price?
Product price.
We want to get the total amount made for each row.
So
we have
profit margin
quantity
should be
sold.
the interest, Abi. Or
I
what's
think we'll be
profit
adding
margin?
the quantity sold and the product price.
Would we be adding
No,
or
what will be
multiplying?
multiplying?
Multiplication.
Multiplication.
Okay,
Oh,
awesome.
yeah, multiplying. Yes, multiplying.
Okay. Okay, so now let's use a new column for that. So we're going to be writing a very simple function. So this time around, we're not even doing so many serere, right? And all of that stuff. So we're just going to be writing a very simple, I said DAX could be simple, DAX could also be complex and everything. So I want to use a new column for this. Now I'm going to name the column amount made. So you can see this now. This is our new column added here. Right, we have our new column added here. And I'm going to write amount made here. So let's say amount made, or yeah, well, sales value, not really amount made. So let me use sales value. So let's say sales value. So definitely, a function starts with an equal sign. Okay. Yes. Now, because we're writing a simple function, I'm not calling a function name. So I'm going to say quantity. Where's that thing now? So that I'm sure I'm writing the right thing. So quantity sold multiplied by, the multiplication sign is asterisk, right?
Asterisk, yes.
Multiplied by product price. So I'm going to click on this. So this is a simple function we're writing. So this is not DAX anything.
I wanted to say it looks like Excel formula.
So remember I said some Excel formulas can be used in DAX.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just writing a very simple formula. So what happened here? It's saying error. Why? So why do we have an error?
Maybe they needed to be highlighted.
So this is why we have an error. Because we're supposed to call the table name. We don't just write the name of the column. So let me explain this. Okay, so now, remember, I said when you're writing any DAX formula, whatever it is, whether simple or not simple, okay, whether you're calling a DAX function or you're not calling a DAX function, DAX references a column or an entire table. Do you remember that? We don't reference DAX. What am I saying? DAX does not reference a cell like Excel. It doesn't reference a cell like Excel. Okay? So it references a column. So what that means is that you need to call the column name. So you need to call the name of the column in the table that you want to work on. So this is a sales table. This is the name of the table, sales. And what we want to carry out is a calculation between the column quantity sold and the column quantity price. So if we don't tell Power BI that, imagine you have more than one table here now. You are not telling Power BI that I am calculating quantity sold on the sales table. I mean, that already is an error in itself, right? So we have our quantity sold here and then our product price. So let's see what we get now. Let's see if we'll still have an error. So awesome, we don't have an error any longer.
Please, I would like to understand. I see that the reason we had that what's name? the other error was because sales was not attached to it. Is it because the table had sales in it, so the function to has to carry sales?
Okay, so here's the thing. So this is what I tried to explain, right? When I talked about DAX, I said DAX references a column in a table or the entire table. Now, when you're writing a DAX formula, whether a simple DAX formula or a complex formula that you're going to carry out full-blown DAX functions and everything on, you need to ensure that you remember the table you are working on. So now, here, imagine we have more than one table here. That's, first of all, these are field names in our table sales. So these are column names in the table sales. So it's not like they are different tables. They are all under the table sales. So imagine we have sales table, then we have another table again that also has quantity sold. If we are not referencing the right table, our calculation will be wrong. And you cannot carry out a calculation without telling the Power BI artificial intelligence programming that I am working on the sales table. This calculation I want to carry out now should work on the sales table.
Okay.
Yes. So before, you cannot just write the column name of the two columns that you want to work on. You must reference the table that you're calling that column name from. I could have my quantity sold in my sales column and then have my product price in a product table. So I can actually combine both of them together to get my sales value by just calling up the quantity sold from the sales value, sales table, multiplied by the product price from the product table. I can do that. So I can actually carry out calculations on two different tables in one DAX formula. So that's why it's important to always reference the table that you are carrying out calculations on. Now, if you don't reference the table, it will throw an error. That's one good thing with Power BI DAX. It will throw an error. Okay, and it will even give you pointers to where this error is coming from. Like the error message we got was that sold was not a correct syntax. So now in this case here, okay, we don't have a DAX function name, but we have parameters. So these are our parameters, the things that we're trying to calculate. These are our parameters. Does it make sense?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I still have an issue. I don't know.
Okay.
When you say referencing the table, because when you were typing it, I think you typed the correct thing. From what I saw, you typed quantity sold, asterisk as in multiplied by product. I mean, you typed the product price, and it gave you that issue. So when you say referencing the table, are you saying that you have to click on the table on the column? I don't get how you were able to get this thing to work still. I don't get it. How you were able to get a formula to work. Okay. I don't know if you understand my question.
So this is how I got the formula to work. Once you start typing, you would see names of the table. So let's try another example. And then we'll type slowly so that you can see the names of the table pop up. I actually typed very fast because I wanted to bypass that. So let's see. Let's carry out a logical function. Okay. Should we carry out a logical function? Okay, let's use a simple sum, for example, now.
Sum can be logical, exactly. Just you can use the same thing. Just do sum or multiply something.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. So let's carry out the sum function now. So I'll just I'll create a new column again. So I'll create a new column here. So please watch and see how it calls it up. Okay, so let's say total What should I do now? So let me say
what if we do that sales value minus product price?
Okay, so what would that give us now? Profits.
Yes.
That really wouldn't be our profit anyway. So because that sales value is the total of quantity sold
Of
times the product.
yes, it's just a rough calculation since that's just
Okay.
like a
So
figure.
let me just use the sum. So let me do product price. Okay. The idea is to show you how it calls up the table.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're going to call a function named sum. Okay. So when you type sum, you can see this is fx, right? Because it's a function. So I'll click on this and it automatically opens the bracket for me. Now, see this now. These are the table names. These are the table names. All sales here is the table names. Everything in brackets, this is a bracket. Everything in bracket is the column ID. Okay. Now, let's assume that after typing sum, I don't have only one table here. Let's say I want to check product price. So I just want to type. You see, as I'm typing slowly, it's bringing it up, the name of the column. So whichever column I want to use. So product price. Okay. And then I can click on this. And definitely I must close my parentheses and then click on OK. Oh, I typed product price here. Product total. Let's see price total, sorry. Price total. And I'll click enter.
But please, I would like to see the calculation here. We said some product price with what?
Again, like I said, we are trying to, I'm just trying to show you the simplest of the functions. So we're just summing the product price. And you can see that here, the values are the same because it's a summation of everything here. So all of the columns are going to definitely be the same. Okay. I just want you to see it. I would have used the new measure for this, but I just want you to see what exactly it looks like and how the names are being called up. Now, this here, okay, doesn't make sense. So let me do this sales value again. So let's definitely, I'm going to remove this. Okay, sales value equals. Can you see it now? I typed Q.
Yes.
And because only one column has Q, quantity sold pops up. So because I typed fast, it bypassed this because I wanted you to see that error so that I can explain the error and then we go back to doing the correct thing. Okay, so Power BI DAX must always reference the table name before you get the column. You can have more than one table. You can carry out a calculation with columns from different tables. The most important thing is that so far as you're referencing the names of the table, it will have pick up the table, the column name from that table. So you cannot just write quantity sold and then product price to get an answer. So now I'm going to type this. You can see it's coming up. Okay, so I'm going to type product price, click on the product price and then click OK. Now, does it make sense?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello, IB. Okay, so for what you are doing now, what I think is that you have to be for you to be able to call up functions and say, okay, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to get the result I want. That means you have to be quite good with mathematics, right?
I wouldn't say be quite good with mathematics per se. There are some things that defies mathematics. There are some DAX functions that defies mathematics. So you can't like really write a mathematical expression down and then think you can just convert it to DAX. Okay, so like I have this analysis I did, and I wanted to get the mode. Now Power BI doesn't have a function for mode, but I had to calculate the mode, and it did not. You know, we know that mode is what, the highest number, right? So Power BI doesn't have a function for mode. So I wrote like one very long thing like that. That's, well, I shall wrote it and got the mode. So it's not like you need to know mathematics. Sometimes DAX defies mathematics per se. So these are the simplest of the simplest. These are the basics. Again, that's why I said there's something about Googling the functions.
Yeah, not to also cut you. I think another way to answer, I don't know who answered that question, Toladi also, is also that it's not necessarily mathematics, but it's more like domain knowledge. What the DAX that you will need would depend on the need of the business that owns the data that you are using. So apart from being a data analyst, you need to properly understand how the business works. That's how you know, oh, which one is profits, which one is discounts, which one is, and that's how you know how to calculate whatever you need to calculate. And I think sometimes we eventually do a data project in real life. There's something called the data dictionary. For example, you have created plenty new columns or measures. When you are sharing the report with the people who are going to use it, you need to have what you call a data dictionary, where you explain what each of the columns mean. That's where you then explain that, oh, profit is the difference between revenue and cost of sales and things like that. So you need to like properly understand the business. And then when you're sharing your reports, it's best practice to share it with the data dictionary. So people are not coming back to ask you to say, what does this column mean? What does this other column mean?
Okay,
all right, thank you so much. Okay, so this brings us to the end of our class for today. I hope I've been able to impact some form of knowledge.
Thank you to our tutor.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. I enjoyed the class.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Really enjoyed
it. Was really great. Thank you to you and
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you to the
real
organizers.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes,
down.
thank you to the organizers, the
Thank
textilers team. We appreciate you for this great opportunity.
For free. Thank you. I just
Thank you.
imagine.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. And thank you to all my colleagues here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Bye. See you all next week.
Well done. Yeah, bye.
Let's not go yet. Let's not go
everyone. Okay.
Hello, let's not go yet.
Oh, let's not go yet.
Let's not go yet. I wanted everybody to say all their thank you. And stop the recording and just go over a few